Samu Omarodion has been my favourite player on FM24, and this summer he moved to FC Porto and I was excited because I really want to build this Porto team around Samu, and I think he could help Porto become champions of Europe once again, and who knows, maybe even become a Ballon d'Or winner. So I'm going to take over Porto and try and make this dream a reality. But to do this, first I'm going to have to conquer Portugal and defeat Sporting and Benfica. So I'm going to need to build a banging tactic. And here it is in all its glory, the Feed the Beast with Samu Omarodion up front by himself as a target forward. As I said, I want to build this tactic around Samu. I want him to be the focal point of our attack. Everything needs to go through him. And although he hasn't exactly been lighting up the league with goals at the early part of the season, he has got on the score sheet, as lucky as it was. But of course, this is a 20-year-old Samu Omarodion and he hasn't quite exactly developed into a world-beating player. That's what we need to do across the next couple of seasons. Although the basics are there and we know that this guy has that dog in him to have the potential to be one of the best strikers in the world. Now, there's no budget for us to upgrade any players in Season 1, but I still think this team is good enough. We've got Diogo Costa in the goal. We've got fantastic wingers in Galeno and Pepe. We've even got Varela, who I think is a fantastic CDM. So this team around Samu Omarodion should do the job to at least put up a title challenge in Portugal. A good sign though is that we played Benfica early on in the Super Cup and defeated them 4-2. And Samu even managed to get himself on the score sheet, linking up really well with Dani Damaso. What a finish that is. Defensively as well, we weren't conceding any goals other than that Super Cup game against Benfica. But there are a lot of competitions in Portugal, including 2 cup competitions, and of course, we've got to think about the Champions League on top of the Portuguese league. So it's important we pace ourselves and take our time. Eventually, we can get to the point where we should be dominating and looking to win all the competitions while we're challenging for that Champions League trophy. But until then, I'm happy to just go with the flow, see how we do across the season, try and win ourselves a league title, and make sure Sammy keeps scoring loads of goals. But again, this tactic is literally built to try and help him score loads of goals. The whole aim of this tactic is to feed the beast. And the early signs are promising, however, there's something quite unexpected that's popped up. Because so far domestically, we've won every single game. We even played Sporting in the league at Sporting, beat them, and the only 2 games we've actually lost is 2 away fixtures in the Champions League, one against Real Madrid and one against Leipzig. You can see even Samu's picking up hat-tricks in some games and you think, well, he must be doing really well. He is, but somehow Dani Damasso's got 13 goals. In trying to feed the beast, we're actually feeding Dani Damaso, the shadow striker. But hey, if it's keeping us from winning every single game so far, then I ain't going to be worrying about that too much just yet. Of course, we finally did get beat in the league in one of the games where we had 23 shots to their 5. Somehow we lost 2-1 to a team which I bet probably a lot of you don't even know existed. But as we went into January, to be honest, I wasn't that worried about it. And neither really was Samu, because he was still getting on the score sheet, scoring lots of goals, and of course, enjoying his football as we feed the beast. And although we've only lost 1 game, Benfica haven't lost at all. We haven't played them in the league yet, but we're still 1 point ahead of them. However, Dani Damaso is somehow still our top scorer. It's not obviously a priority in Season 1, but we still want to do well in the Champions League, and with 2 games to left, we kind of need to make sure we win one of our last 2. And we are still in both of the cup competitions in Portugal as well. I knew immediately we built a good tactic, but we're still surprising me even now because we just dominated Barcelona and beat them 1-0. And we also gave Benfica their first loss of the season. It was 1-0 and Dani Damaso scored. Although we were knocked out of the Allianz Cup in the semi-final, and that was kind of disappointing. Oh, and we were knocked out of the Taça de Portugal, which is basically the Portuguese FA Cup. But as I mentioned, we kind of really needed to win one of our last 2 Champions League fixtures, which we did after losing one of them, the PSV. We then beat Lille, and thankfully we go through in the playoff situation, finishing in 19th place. And after a cracking month in January, where Benfica actually took 2 losses, we've now opened up a 6-point gap in the league with a game in hand. Porto and Chelsea have a weird link because of obviously Jose Mourinho, who won the Champions League with Porto and then moved to Chelsea, and that's who we got in the knockout playoff round, and we drew 1-1 in the first leg despite dominating. So progressing through was always going to be difficult going to Stamford Bridge. And it got even harder when Christopher Nkunku opened the scoring after just 10 minutes of the game. However, we waited until the second half and kept plugging along, and guess who stepped up to score a late equaliser? Samu from the back post. And the game went into extra time, and just when we needed a goal, did we rely on Samu? No, it was actually Danny Damaso once again who popped in the winner. Genuinely, I'll be so fuming if Danny Damaso ends up winning the Ballon d'Or in this video. But hey, we're through the Champions League and we've got to play Real Madrid, so I guess we'll focus on next year. Well, that's what I thought until we held Real Madrid to a 1-0 win, down to 10 men from 35 minutes onwards, and keeping them from having a shot on target when they had Kylian Mbappe up front. And when we went to the Bernabeu, I was even more surprised we didn't have Danny Damaso, who seems to be our best player, and yet we still came away with a 3-1 win, albeit all the goals that we ended up scoring was past the 80 minutes, but we're still through somehow. I genuinely think I've built an unbelievable tactic. I think I might need to tweak the front bit because Samu's not exactly scoring the most goals. He's not exactly the focal point of attacks. I think he's more of a supplier. Put him on a target forward. He's still got 19 goals, but Danny Damaso was 24. He seems to be feeding off Samu's knockdowns really well. Either way, I felt like we knocked out the best team in the competition. We have Inter Milan next. It's still a long shot for us to win the thing, but I'm just happy we've got this far. And our league form has never dropped off. We still only lost that one game. We're 7 points clear, and we still got a game in hand over Sporting. In that quarter-final, the home leg was played first, and Danny Damaso ended up setting up our friend Samuel Marodion to take the lead against Inter Milan. And we travelled to Italy with us being 2-1 up, although Benjamin Pavard did score a late consolation going into the second leg. But that is unfortunately where this Champions League campaign did end. Because despite us putting up a really good fight, Inter Milan were too strong for us in that second leg. We couldn't score a goal, our ratings were awful, and we've been knocked out of the Champions League at the quarterfinal stage. But still, we've done ourselves proud. This season has been great. Our league form is still good, and we've only got, with 3 games left, 1 point to win, and then we've won the league. And we did that comfortably. We won 3 games from our final 3. We are champions of Portugal by some mile as well. 13 points, only losing 1 game. However, Danny Damaso and Galeno both scored more goals than Samu, who was joint 7th with just 13 in the league. Danny Damaso somehow was the joint top goal scorer of the league with 24, and that across the season as well. He got 30 with 13 assists. So I might have to look at that. The important thing is, though, it is a trophy in our first season, and although Samuel Marodion wasn't the top scorer, the development that we've seen from him this season has been absolutely fantastic. And the board are somewhat backing me, giving me nearly £50 million in the transfer budget to try and find players to go in and around our star striker. First things first, though, I wasn't messing around. I needed to change something. I feel like going to a pressing forward on attack is going to be much better for Samu in terms of managing to pick up more goals. And a bid came in for Danny Damaso. I was kind of reluctant to actually selling him, but £28 million from Saudi Arabia? Yeah, I had to accept that. I've wasted no time bringing in a couple of new players either. I've got a left-footed centre-back here in Parola. The Italian is very good, comes straight into our first 11. And this guy here, a Moroccan CDM, who I think will fit perfectly in our deep-line playmaker role. And if Danny Damaso does go to Saudi Arabia, that money plus the £15 million that I've got left gives me a good amount to find another centre-attacking midfielder. And Danny did indeed go, moving to Saudi Arabia and give me nearly another £30 million to spend. Now, I did actually struggle to find a player to bring in, but then I decided to go for somebody a little bit younger and kind of develop him, just like I'm kind of doing with Samu. And I brought in Manchester City's Norwegian centre-attacking midfielder Oscar Bob, who, yeah, okay, he's not quite as good as Danny Damaso yet, but he has the potential. I spent £45 million on him. He slots in quite nicely in behind Samu, so hopefully they can strike up a nice little partnership, and I think the side is definitely looking stronger than what we had last season. I did, however, get a little bit worried because in the first game of the season, within like 10 minutes, our first goal was scored, and once again, it was Oscar Bob, the shadow striker who put it into the net. However, in the same game soon after, Samu was on the score sheet, and in fact he actually picked up 2 in this game, and he has been absolutely on fire at the start of the season. I think changing his role from a target forward, which is more of like kind of, I don't know, maybe like a link-up type of role, into a pressing forward, which kind of gives him the license to be aggressive and do everything that he's good at anyway, has been a good move. Because in the few games so far, although we haven't played anybody special, it hasn't cost us in any of the games, and goal-wise, Samu Marodion has 7 in 7 and is currently the top scorer, although Galeno just seems to score so many goals from that left midfield spot. He's a very good player. But then Samu decided to even step it up a gear yet again, and he absolutely obliterated the league with his goals and his presence, scoring 4 goals in the first half against Famalicão. But the whole team were fantastic. We even went to Anfield and got a 0-0 draw. Although early signs in the Champions League were that we got 3 draws from the 3 games we played. 2 of them were away from home against Tottenham and Liverpool. But in the league, we were so dominant, we won 11 of our first 11. Famalicão, who we just beat 7-1, are in second place. Sporting and Benfica have dropped all the way down to 5th and 7th, and Samuel Marodion is on 12 goals in those 11 games. I somehow think the pressing forward change has made our tactic even better. So we kept things rocking and rolling through to January, and Samu carried on doing what he loves best, scoring a lot of goals with Oscar Bob setting them up. There were a few hiccups along the way though. Benfica, when we went there, destroyed us 3-0. And we haven't actually won a game in the Champions League yet. I mean, we've drawn 5 of them and lost 1, and we've got 2 fairly winnable games to finish us up, but we're not currently in the playoff positions to go to the next round. But still, we're 4 points clear of the league as we go into January. And we got our revenge against Benfica after we were drawn to play against them again at their stadium in the Taça de Portugal 5th round, and this time we won 3-0. And we won our last 2 Champions League fixtures in the Champions League phase and finished 19th, which I'm pretty sure was the same place we finished last season. The board actually gave us some money in January, and I actually brought in another defender in FM24 who can play on that right-hand side. But I also approached Kylian Sildilia, who is on an end-of-contract deal, who can actually play naturally at right-back or centre-back, and I think he's going to be a great asset next season. There's another chance for us to get revenge against Benfica, as we've got to play him early in February in the Allianz Cup final. But despite us absolutely dominating the game with 15 shots to just their 3, they come away with the win. And it was only 1-0 as well. How disappointing. A positive in February, though, is that we were drawn against Arsenal in the Champions League playoff spot, and Samu Marodion actually opened the scoring after just 10 minutes. In fact, Samu was on form on this day, and we take a 2-goal lead going to the Emirates after he picked up a second 5 minutes later. He even scored in the second leg. We lost it 2-1, but we still progressed 3-2 on aggregate. We are once again out of the Taça de Portugal, though, losing 2-1 to a team we should never be losing 2-1 at home to. So it may seem like we're kind of going backwards, but to be honest, I'm really happy because Samuel Marodion has got 34 goals in 42 games and is turning into a bit of a monster. I mean, we all know he could be, but he's literally doing it. And after just 23 games, if we don't win the league title, I don't deserve to be here next season. We are so far ahead. And after beating Arsenal in the last round, we've now got to face Tottenham in the next. And it just had to be my dad's team that knocked me out, didn't it? It couldn't have just been anybody else. Anybody else in that draw could have knocked me out. No, it had to be Spurs. We also had a chance of winning the league against Benfica at home, but no, they beat us 2-0. But we've got to play Sporting next, and if we do that, then we actually win the league, as Benfica are still in second place, but still somewhat behind us. Sporting, however, are down in 5th. And we got the job done. It was a 1-0 win, and guess who managed to get themselves on the score sheet? It was the league's Golden Boot winner, Samu. So yes, it's 2 league wins from 2 so far for us, and this time Samu Marodion takes home the Golden Boot with 24 goals. Absolutely fantastic, and overall, he got 41 in 52 games. However, he is starting to attract a lot of interest elsewhere, so we're going to have to try and keep hold of him somehow when he looks this good. The development of Oscar Bob has been a little bit slow, but he still performed quite well. In the league alone, he got 9 goals and 4 assists, with a really high average rating, and I think overall we can be happy with that season. It's just a shame about the 2 League Cups. And even still, with Sildilia coming in at the end of the season, we've got £35 million to play around with as well. And because of his fine form, Spain then gave a debut to Samu, and he went on to get himself a hat-trick. A fantastic feat for a fantastic player. Looking at my first team with the best 11 in it, I decided that this left-back position is probably the role that I want to upgrade next. Possibly even these 2 positions, and maybe if we got enough money, another centre defensive midfielder. But I actually really struggled to find a good centre defensive midfielder, and we do have options in there, so instead I brought in 2 defenders. With the first being Calafiori, who we picked up from Arsenal. Now he's been given no love since his move to North London, but already in 3 games, he's repaid us with 2 goals, so kind of worth his £20 million price tag. The other was a little bit more expensive, but he actually fills 2 roles that we are using, including the left back and the left midfield, as a natural position. He's fantastic at crossing. He has pretty much all around attributes that I really like, and it's Quentin Merlin, who is a French left-sided midfielder slash defender. 24 years of age. He did cost us £30 million, but again, I think it's actually worth it. And those 2, alongside Kylian Sildilia, was the only 3 signings we actually made this summer, meaning it was just 3 signings and all of them were defenders. But I actually think that's kind of what we need right now. If we want to go on and win the Champions League, we've already got Samu firing, and I think Oscar Bob is definitely a good future prospect. This has actually really improved our team. And that's not just me guessing either, because as well as us being very good in attack, defensively at the start of this season, we have been just as solid and barely conceded any goals whatsoever. Outside of the Super Cup, which we won 4-3 after extra time with against Sporting, who have Dominic Calvert-Lewin, we've only conceded 1 goal in the league, and that was away from home. And that was also in the 94th minute when we already had the game wrapped up. Other than that, we've been dominating teams and we started really well. I also think we've been given quite kind fixtures in the Champions League. Inter Milan, Newcastle and Bayern Munich, yes, that's going to give us a bit of a challenge, but the rest of the fixtures are really winnable games and we should be able to qualify. And I was right, because the only fixture that really cost us was because Parola got himself sent off against Inter Milan in the Champions League. That was in the 18th minute and kind of cost us the match, despite obviously Inter Milan being 1-0 up already. We couldn't really put up a fight, but that is our only fixture which we haven't managed to win the game yet. We even beat Newcastle 6-2, and Samu scored 4 goals in total. As we go into November, he's already scored 10 goals in 10 league games with 3 assists, but overall 18 goals in just 14 fixtures across all competitions. He even managed to score an equalising goal against Bayern Munich when we were 1-0 down at Bayern Munich, and to be fair, we put up a really good fight in this match. Unfortunately, however, despite us having way more shots and way more opportunities and even a lot higher XG, we still managed to lose the game 3-1. But that is still a lot of positives to take from this game. Our first challenging fixture in the league was against Sporting at home, and we cruised past them with a 2-0 win, with Galeno opening the scoring quite early on. So I'm really happy with the start of season number 3, and if you've been impressed so far by what you've seen, why not consider smashing that subscribe button and help us get to 150k. So the only real blips as we go into the new year is the Bayern Munich loss, a weird loss to Red Bull Salzburg, and a draw in the league. But other than that, we have been flying through and we are top of the league, still unbeaten by 4 points, as well as Benfica, who we've yet to still play. We actually played them at the very beginning of January, and the result was at home and it went our way, and it was only 1 goal as Quentin Merlin crossed in the ball and there was Samu to head it in. And that 1-0 win was shortly followed by a 1-1 draw away from home in the opposite fixture. But we would be facing Benfica once again, and this time in a cup final, as we both win 4-1 in our semi-final fixtures in the Allianz Cup. But switching our focus back to the Champions League, we've had a fantastic league phase. We've won 5 out of our 8 and even qualified in the top 6, meaning we avoid that dreaded playoff. But let's see if we can get our first trophy on the board as we face Benfica in the Allianz Cup final. Well, this could not have gone any worse, as Samu decided to hack one of their players down 15 minutes into the match and get himself a straight red card, and things from there just went a lot worse. Because Benfica dominated the game with 14 shots to just our 1, we couldn't even get a shot on target and defeated us 2-0, so our first trophy this season is not going to be the Allianz Cup final. He did make up for it after, I suppose, in the following game when he scored a hat-trick in the other semi-final for the Taça de Portugal, which, again, we have yet to win. And with the second leg of the semi-final still to play, it does look like, once again, we'll be facing Benfica in the final should we progress. It's a familiar foe in the round of 16, though, as we've got to face Newcastle, who we've already beaten in the league phase after they overcome Aston Villa in the knockout playoff round. And after beating them away from home 2-0 in the first leg, we carried on very confidently into the home leg, another 3-1 win, with Samu getting himself a lovely brace. At this point, his league form only seen him score 16 in 22, which is weirdly bad for what he's doing right now, because he's actually got 37 in 37 games in all competitions. Once again, though, we've only had 2 slip-ups in the last 3 months, and both were against Benfica, where we drew in the league and lost in that cup final. The rest of our league form has been absolutely immaculate, and we're still unbeaten and cruising away in the league title. Our goal of dominating Portugal, especially league form-wise, means we could have 3 league titles in a row, with Samu being our main focal point. It's just the cups and, of course, that Champions League that we really need to focus on next. However, I don't think anybody was prepared to see what we were going to accomplish in the quarter-final of the Champions League. Because at home in the first leg, we've just beaten Liverpool 6-0. 6-0. I can't believe it myself. Samu managed to get 1, but the side was just perfect. It was a perfect performance. We kept that form rocking and rolling in the semi-final second leg of the Taça de Portugal meeting. Yes, we will play Benfica in that final, which we played at the end of the season. However, we are in a Champions League semi-final, and we have AC Milan to play at home in the first leg, and we're not holding up. In fact, feel like we're getting even better, as we absolutely smashed them 3-0 in the first leg without Samu even getting on the pitch. In and around these other competitions, though, we actually drew 2 more games in the league, but it didn't matter. With just 3 games remaining, we have comfortably won the league, and we're still unbeaten so far after the 31 fixtures. However, it doesn't look like Samu is going to be winning the Golden Boot unless he pulls his finger out. That league win meant we can solely focus on the Champions League, though in the semi-final second leg, we only lost 2-1 in Milan, meaning we go through to the final 4-2 winners on aggregate. Rather annoyingly, on the final day of the season, though, for the league fixtures, we lost 1-0 to Sporting, meaning that we have only picked up 1 loss all season to Sporting, although Samu did win the Golden Boot eventually. But we have 2 cup finals to play, and we're only in season 3, and one of them is the Champions League final, and that's against PSG, which is actually to be played before we play Benfica. And what a game this was, being played in Barcelona at the Nou Camp, and Porto against PSG. We go into the lead, and that man Samu scored the opening goal. However, in devastating fashion, when we looked comfortable, a misplaced pass in the midfield allowed Hakimi in the 90th minute to find Osimhen to find an equaliser to send the game into extra time. And the momentum fully shifted then towards PSG, and Victor Osimhen was just absolutely clinical, and his pace up front was just too much for our defence. We were trying to push so much for an equaliser late into extra time, but PSG's squad is just way too strong for us, and they eventually got a third when Lee Kang-in smashed one in from range. I mean, I'm absolutely gutted, but Samu scoring the opening goal gave us a lot of hope, and the fact that it took a 90th minute equaliser from one of the world's best strikers other than Samu, it's quite promising, really, and it makes me feel like we could achieve this in a couple of years' time, despite us not exactly having a world-beaten squad. But what would make me feel really better is if we went and smashed Benfica in the Taça de Portugal final. And smash them would be a bit of an understatement, because we went out and absolutely demolished them. And guess who got themselves a hat-trick? 5-0 winners in the Taça de Portugal placard final, and Samu Omarodion got himself 3 goals. So this overall was a phenomenal season. Runners-up in the Champions League alone is something that this Porto side should not be doing, but nearly going invincible, winning the main cup and becoming runners-up in the Allianz Cup, that's a fantastic season for us. Samu, although in the league didn't get as many goals, still smashed in 45 in 48 in total, and Galena with 23 and 24 on that wing is just superb numbers. I'm unsure now how we're actually going to improve this team, because the money that we've got is £27 million. It's not exactly like that's enough money to bring anybody massive into the club. Other things we've got to think about now is that Ballon d'Or. Will Samu Omorodion have done enough this season to even be considered to finish in the top 3? Without us having the money to instantly improve our first team, I decided to go for players that I think with a little bit of game time could become better than what we've already got. So I brought in this new gen Thiago De Roca, who might be a really good centre defensive midfielder, and Marcus Hausner, who I'm actually considering starting most games at that right centre-back spot because I actually think he could become better than what we've got already. But then a transfer I was hesitant to make at first was Pepe, who left to go to Saudi Arabia for £28 million. Given that he was 30 years of age and we could really put the money to good use, I accepted the offer because that allowed us to bring in 2 more signings that could give us a lot more backup options. I felt like we were kind of weak in terms of depth. And I also found a really good youngster in our youth academy. The 2 new signings that came through the door was Samuel Vignato, who can play in that centre attacking midfield spot when we don't have Oscar Bob or need rotation, and Enzo Sternau, who again can play in that centre attacking midfield spot, but is actually a backup for Samu because we don't necessarily have one. But in my youth academy, I noticed in the under-19s a young man called Kelvin Duarte with fantastic potential, and he has the ability to play on that left midfield spot. So I'm going to promote into the first team. I feel like we just bed him in slowly, give him a few games when we're kind of against a team that we should be beating. Real Madrid then surprisingly came in for our centre-back that I was considering dropping for the new centre-back that we brought in, so I accepted that because that was another £21 million, and that allowed us to bring in Joe Bellingham for £35 million, who I actually want to play in this centre defensive midfield spot. I think he's going to improve our side. So going into the start of the season, these are the 3 players that I decided to give a lot of game time to try and bed them into the side in positions that not naturally are good for them, but it still really paid off because out of the games that we have played in the league, the 5 fixtures, we haven't conceded a goal yet. We're still playing against teams that we should be beating anyway, but we've comfortably won 3-0 in 4 of them and 4-0 in the other one. Samu scoring a lot of goals. The only game we really struggled with was an extra time loss in the Super Cup to Benfica, but it's only the Super Cup. Our league phase Champions League fixtures were a lot more difficult this season, having to play both Manchester United and Manchester City, as well as Liverpool. And in the opening Champions League fixture away to Manchester City, a game which Manchester City dominated us, there was just 1 goal, scored by Samu, followed by a 6-0 win at home to Fenerbahce, and our Champions League fixtures have got us off with a flyer. But hold the phone, because it's already happened. I can't quite believe it either, because as I was casually looking at Samu's profile, I just happened to look at the milestones, and there it was. He's won the Ballon d'Or after just 3 seasons. We're already in season 4, and he's managed to win the Ballon d'Or with 45 goals in 47 games and 9 assists, above Kylian Mbappe, who was on to win his 3rd in a row. We haven't even won the Champions League yet, and Samu is a Ballon d'Or winner. I'm damn proud of him. The amount of goals he's been scoring lately has been phenomenal. I just didn't quite expect him to win that, not after having lost in the Champions League final. But still, we set out the challenge of helping him win the Ballon d'Or with us at Porto, and we've somehow managed to do it already. Now we just need to win the Champions League. Guys, there's a chance to come meet me and 4 other Football Manager creators and watch us on a Football Manager panel at the London MCM Comic Con, or the EGX convention, which is amalgamated into one this year, the London XL Arena, which will be taking place on the final weekend of October, which is a half-term weekend, October the 27th, which is the Sunday. I'll be there the whole weekend, so you might bump into me in and around all of the conventions, but the Football Manager panel is on the Sunday at 1:55, and there's a meet and greet after. So come along, say hi, enjoy the whole weekend, but make sure you get to that panel and come and say hello in the meet and greet. I look forward to seeing you. Our quest of lifting the Champions League, however, was in jeopardy with just 2 games remaining in the league phase, because we failed to beat Red Star and then lost 3 fixtures in a row to Roma, Liverpool and Manchester United, meaning the next game against Anderlecht was really important, and we didn't have Samu. However, Edozie actually played up front in his absence and managed to get himself a brace. Samu was back against PSV though in the final fixture of the league phase, a game we still needed to win after beating Anderlecht 4-0, and Samu got himself a hat-trick and we win 5-2. Leaving it to be a little bit risky, but we still managed to qualify. We'll just have to play the playoff. We were dominating the league. In fact, we had won 20 out of our 21 games and only drawn 1, losing none, and Samu had scored 24 league goals alone, with 39 in 32 across all competitions. This man is adamant in trying to win back-to-back Ballon d'Ors, and I'm all for it. He wasn't even backing down when we played against Leipzig in the playoff. In fact, he went on and scored yet another hat-trick away from home, helping us progress through to the round of 16 with a 5-2 aggregate, going on to play yet another Red Bull side in Salzburg. We still can't win the Allianz Cup though, this time losing to Sporting on penalties after Samu opened the scoring. Back in the Champions League, and it was another 3 goals for Samu across both legs when we played Red Bull Salzburg, meaning that we go into the quarter-final rather comfortably. But to progress through to the semi-final, we've got to play Manchester City. With the first leg being played at the Etihad, Erling Haaland scored the opening goal from the penalty spot. But we kept in the game, and in the second half, we eventually defensively kept them quiet and managed to create an opportunity for Vignato to score an equaliser going into the second leg. In the second leg at home, Calafiori managed to find Joe Bellingham after just 20 minutes on the clock, who found himself some space just inside the edge of the area to put us 1-0 up. That lead was then doubled straight from kickoff as Manchester City got caught napping and Samuel Rodion managed to find the net after Ederson's blunder, easing us through to the semi-final after beating them 4-2 on aggregate. Domestically, we give ourselves the best opportunity to win the Taça de Portugal after defeating Benfica in the semi-final, and we've got quite an easy fixture in the final. And with just 2 games left, we only need 1 more win and we are champions of Portugal once again. Meaning we can solely focus on the Champions League semi-final against Inter Milan, but we concede a penalty after just 3 minutes of the game starting in the first leg, but Diego Costa makes a cracking save. However, it wasn't long before Inter Milan did eventually break us down, and Lautaro Martinez found a lovely pass for Barella to open the scoring after just 11 minutes. Oscar Bob was missing in this fixture, unfortunately, in that shallow striker role, but Samu had instead got Vignato behind him, and Joe Bellingham found him with a lovely pass in the second half. And with just 10 minutes left remaining on the clock, there was 1 goal still to play before we went into the second half, and a long ball found Samu, and he found the back of the net. And with the second leg being played at home, we really fancy our chances to go on to play either Arsenal or Barcelona in the Champions League final. In the second leg, things started perfectly for us when Fernando decided to hack down our centre-back and get himself sent off after just 4 minutes. No goals were scored, but we comfortably went through to the final of the Champions League. Meanwhile, on the final day of the league campaign, we defeated Benfica 2-1 after scoring 2 goals in the 91st and 94th minute after they took the lead in the 89th, meaning that we win the league really comfortably with them in second place and 9 points behind us, and Samu got 30 goals in 34 games. We also finally lifted the Taça de Portugal after a 2-0 victory, and Oscar Bob opening the scoring after Sildilia's unbelievable run down the right. So to complete our treble, we've just got to win the Champions League against Arsenal. And the game being played in Amsterdam was a very tight one, and there was just 1 goal the whole 90 minutes, scored by, you guessed it, Samu Omarodion. Yes, the Beast scored the only goal in the fixture, and he didn't even start the game. He actually come off the bench on the 61st minute and scored in the 64th. I didn't realise, but still, we are Champions League winners with Porto for the first time in 24 years for them, and we have secured the treble. This unbelievable season where Samu Omarodion got 30 league goals in 33 games, 56 goals in total in just 52 starts, and 3 trophies in our trophy cabinet. But I feel like this tactic was just unbelievable, and as you can see, I was trying to play Duarte and Bellingham as much as I possibly could. They've developed quite well in their roles, but Samu Omarodion playing up front was just a completely different animal. He has been fantastic for us, and it's no surprise that he did win the Ballon d'Or. And now that we've actually won the Champions League, I'm kind of curious to see whether he will win it again next year. So I think I'm going to simulate another season. And so I did. I didn't buy any players, and somehow Samu finished in 3rd place behind Kylian Mbappe. I don't know how. I mean, I'm so glad he won last season, because the bias towards Mbappe here, when we won the treble, including the Champions League, which we didn't even win the season before, is mental, considering Mbappe only got 31 in 42, a 7.69, and Samu got 56 in 57 games with a 7.75. How did he finish in 3rd? Amazingly, though, we didn't even win the league, because Benfica went on an unbeaten season, although they did draw 9 games, and pip us to the post after we lost 3 of the fixtures. But somehow we went all the way through the round of 16, the quarter-final against Chelsea, the semi-final against Bayern Munich, and we have another Champions League final, this time against Real Madrid. So let's see if we can make it back-to-back Champions League wins and 3 Champions League finals in a row, and maybe if Samu does well, he can win another Ballon d'Or. Let's find out as we simulate the final game. And no, it's a 2-1 loss, and Kylian Mbappe, I think, got a brace which was overturned. Rodrigo scored, Vinicius Jr. scored. It's a 2-1 loss, but still 3 Champions League finals in a row with this unbelievable tactic. So if you want the save game file, you can do on page.com/MegaLukeGaming or on the YouTube channel memberships to get the Feed the Beast tactic, and maybe I'll do a video on it later on. But thank you very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you are subscribed if you haven't done so already, and why not go and watch this video on screen right now.